Well, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to participate to this wonderful meeting. So most of my talk I will speak about uveal melanoma, but I just want to say a few words on retinoblastoma first, because retinoblastoma is a very rare disease. It's even more rare than uveal melanoma. So for retinoblastoma, collaborative studies are very, very important, and nowadays there are very few multi-center studies, unfortunately. So in Europe, we have recently created a collaborative group, and this was made 3 years ago with the impulsion of Guillermo Chantada, who was working in Barcelona. You know, Guillermo is from Argentina. And the first meeting was in Curie, where we created this EuroRB. You can find it on the internet. It's EuRBG. And so there are different working packages. And by example, Francis Mounier is responsible for conservative treatment of the eye. The Amsterdam group is responsible for late effect of treatment, and so and so. And we haven't started a common protocol yet, but we are on the way. And this will be a rescue protocol after failure of other treatment. And this is has been written by the equipe in Lausanne. Also for retinoblastoma, I think it's very important that we collaborate with all the countries where they don't have good care for retinoblastoma. Not well-organized care. And I've done this in Curie with Professor Bay, who is the director of the AMCC, which is the French branch of the INCTR. And we started a program in 2011, working with centers in Africa where they already have ophthalmologists, pediatric oncologists, and pathologists. And we concentrated on the curable disease. And this was made possible by the help of Sanofi Espoir Foundation, My Child Matters, and also GFAOP, Curie Institute, and our parents' association, Retinostop. So this is a country where we have been working. And just an example, in Mali, in 2011, 65% of retinoblastoma patients were extraocular at diagnosis, and none of them survive. And intraocular had a 43% survival rate, 43%. And now we have 76% of unilateral intraocular that are cured, and 33% of bilateral survive. It used to be 0. And we also cure 42% of unilateral extraocular. And it's all done by the local team in Bamako. So I think the 0 death in retinoblastoma is possible in the future, but we have to work on it. Now, for uveal melanoma, I will go quickly on the clinical aspect, because everybody knows this very well. And it's true that there has been little improvement in overall survival during the last 30 years. But we are in, I think, a very fascinating period where we start to see things moving a little bit. We start to see patients improving with treatment with metastatic disease. And this is really, I think, made possible because of the collaboration between people. Just to tell you that uveal melanoma at Institut Curie, we see a little more than 300 patients each year, and we see 60 to 80 new patients with metastatic disease. And we have a data bank and database and biological data bank. The dedicated database built in the 1980s with more than 80,000 patients registered. And this database became a national database in 2008 with a program of the INCA, which is a French NCI. And also we have a national group to work on uveal melanoma, and I'm coordinating this group. We have a national referential for treatment, and we have weekly web conferences to help the ophthalmologists who have less experience with uveal melanoma to treat their patient locally. So in Curie Institute, the collaborative work has been started a long time ago, because 25 years ago, the director of the Institute Curie insisted that for each type of cancer, there should be a working group. And I started this group for uveal melanoma. And you can see all the clinicians that are involved in this group, including a liver surgeon, medical oncologist, etc. And 20 years ago, I started to work with the researchers, because Curie has a hospital and also research center. And we started to collaborate with the researchers. And this is how the translational research could develop in our institution. And now we have also many collaboration with Cure 2020. I will speak about this just in a minute. Melaconate, which is the French group for uveal melanoma. Euracan in Europe. And recently we have been contacted by IRSI, and we are also willing to collaborate with IRSI. So Euracan is organization that studies a rare cancer in Europe, and they have found that there were more than 300 rare cancers, and that some of the patients didn't get the proper treatment. So this is why their aim is to create an organization so that European patients can get the right doctors and the right treatments for rare cancer. So Cure 2020, I think it's a very good opportunity for us. There are 4 different uveal melanoma centers in Europe involved in this research project. Institut Curie, University of Leiden, University of Liverpool, and Krakow University. And there are also research centers, Champalino Foundation, and all of this participating in uveal melanoma Cure 2020. 2 biotechs or diagnostic companies, PEP Therapy and PAMGEN. And I think it's a really very good opportunity for us to be able to work with researchers like Professor Martin Jäger or Professor Sarah Coupland, who have a great experience in translational research for uveal melanoma, and all our effort can be synergistic. And so what we want to do, these are the work packages, and these are all the work we want to do, and we are doing. And the aim of this group is to continue the study of uveal melanoma tumors, uveal melanoma metastasis, and study new targeted therapies in xenograft model and find new treatment for uveal melanoma. So I will quickly show you how it is important to collaborate with the researchers for uveal melanoma and for all cancers. And this is a study that was performed in Curie. It was a study on epidemiology of uveal melanoma. I will drink something. So the relative risk, you know that for uveal melanoma, the relative risk is 10 times more important in European than Afro-American or Asian. And uveal melanoma is much more frequent in people with fair skin and blue eyes. The incidence of uveal melanoma is stable in Europe and there is absence of UV mutation signatures. So we perform a genome-wide association study to identify potential genetic risk factors in a given population. So what we found is that there was an association with the blue ice that you can find in a genetic basis, and also there is also an association that we didn't expect with the TERT gene, which is on chromosome 5. And so all of this was published in Genomic Medicine and can maybe in the future open new ideas or progress in the knowledge of oncogenesis of uveal melanoma. Also, what is very important is a preclinical assessment of drug combinations. And so there is a lot of this going on in HMCure 2020. So this is some of the examples, and drug combinations are tested in vivo, and this will lead to study in patients. Now, because I'm a clinician, I will go back to the clinic. And yesterday, Dan Gombos made a very nice presentation, but there is maybe something I do not completely agree that he said. That was that we are very good at diagnosis of uveal melanoma. Well, I think this is true for enucleated eyes, but are we so good at diagnosis small uveal melanoma? Maybe not. And I have a problem with the management of small melanocytic lesions in general. Because we know the definition of suspicious choroidal nevi, and also we know the SHIELD acronymus perfectly, so we can identify suspicious nevi. Another example here. And we know the risk of growth for a nevus into a melanoma. So the management of suspicious nevi that is recommended, of course, if there is no risk factor, then we observe. This is not suspicious then. Suspicious nevi with 2 risk factors, it's recommended to observe. But if there is 3 or more risk factors, observation can be, to my opinion, can be discussed, and maybe in some patients it would be better to treat. I have some problem with the concept of waiting for documented growth, because I think maybe in some patients it's not the right solution. First of all, when you wait for documented growth, you have to wait for a long time, and I show you this lesion that was stable for 14 years and then start to grow. So the patient that you say you have to do observation has to know that he will have to do observation for a very long time, especially if he's young. And we know that when there are many risk factors, the risk of growth is as high as 56% according to the SHIELD study. This is an example of a patient who had a small, what was called nevus. In fact, he had already a risk factor for growth. When you have pinpoints in the angiogram, is not, this sign is not in the American study because you perform very little angiography, but in France we do a lot of angiography. And in the study that I did, pinpoints was in fact a risk factor for growth. And this patient was not followed because the nevus was considered benign and developed this melanoma and died of metastasis. So also the other problem of waiting for documented growth is that the follow-up of the patient is not always ideal. And I can show you this case of a suspicious nevus that I was following, and I was sharing the consultation with a local ophthalmologist, I would see the patient once a year and send to the local ophthalmologist for the 6-month visit. But you can see this patient came to me, and he had just seen the local ophthalmologist 1 week earlier, and the local ophthalmologist said everything was fine, but in fact the lesion was growing. So the local ophthalmologists don't always know how to really make sure that there is no growth of the tumor. They don't look at the fundus pictures properly, and so sometimes, in fact, you think that there is good surveillance, but it's not the case. Documented growth also was considered as a risk factor for metastasis by the STIL study. And indeed, in Europe, we made a study with Tero Kivala, a study looking in our database at what were the smallest tumor that develop metastasis. And so we find in Curie database 9 patients with histologically proven liver metastasis. And I will just show you a few cases. Here is a case who had histologically proven metastasis. And 4 of these patients had documented growth before treatment. I will show you the case here. This is a suspicious nevus. It was decided to observe. Then the tumor was growing. You can see it very clearly here and here on the ultrasound. So the patient was treated, but he developed metastasis, and this patient as well. You can see the growth of the tumor, and the patient developed metastasis. We know that small melanocytic lesion can be fatal. There is a statistical risk of metastasis. Melanoma-related mortality is about 50% and 25 years, but for small melanoma, there is a 20% death at 30 years for diameter of less than 10 millimeter, and 16% for tumor less than 3 millimeter in thickness. So what do dermatologists do for suspicious nevi? They remove them. And if the pathology report says it's a nevus, the patient is very happy, in fact, that you remove this nevus from his skin. But there is a problem with the ocular oncologists, I think, because during their residency, they are used to look at, to care for vision. So they're always afraid of treating an eye. But as an oncologist, I think in the future, we should be more careful with the life. And I have no problem with wait for documented growth as long as it is a patient choice, not the doctor choice. So the patient has to be aware of the risk of the lesion according to the number of risk factors, and then choose for treatment. And I will show you this case, which it was a patient, he was a surgery resident. He had this large nevus, and he was advised to watch this every 6 months, but he was very much afraid. So he came to Curie and got proton beam, and 10 years later, he has 20/20 vision. So in conclusion, multi-center collaboration is essential. Of course, common biobank, in vitro and in vivo experimentation for preclinical assessment of drug combination, and combined and concerted research program. Thank you.